This video, I'm going to show you 3 huge spiritual awakening mistakes that I made that I wish I hadn't. I wish I would have knew some of these things earlier because it would have made the process so much easier. I'm going to share those with you right now. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you those 3 spiritual awakening mistakes that I went through and things that I did. I kind of made some impulse decisions back in the day. This is like 2012 we're talking. I went through a huge shift in consciousness. I went from needing and not being able to focus to being able to meditate. I changed the way that I thought about myself. I realized that I wasn't a separate ego, having a separate ego experience. I realized that I was a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. And when I had this realization, I was so excited about it. And I was excited to share it with everybody. And I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. However, what I learned is that not everybody was going to be as excited about hearing about it as I was. And when I look back at it now, it almost seems funny, some of the decisions I made, some of the choices I made back in 2012. It's funny for me to see the things I did because now I know, of course now I know what I know, but I would have never done a lot of those. So the first one has to do with feeling different and developing an identity around that spiritual awakening. Now what I mean by this is, here is kind of what happened. I went through my spiritual awakening, I started meditating, my whole entire life changed. I started feeling differently, got rid of taking Adderall for ADHD, I stopped, no longer had to smoke weed anymore, I just felt really good a majority of the time. It was like way beyond anything I ever thought I ever could imagine, but now it's just like my natural state. Not that I'm saying I'm enlightened or anything, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that I have raised my vibrational set point. I do feel like it would be blissful compared to the old version of me. Of course, there's still waves, there's still peaks and lows, that's for sure. However, it's much higher than it used to be. Now, when I went through this, I was so excited about it that I went to my dad, different family members. I went to friends. I was telling everyone about this, and I also, at the time, this is back in 2012, I thought there was a connection between the 2012 and like an ascension of humanity. Now, when I say this, I still, in a way, do believe that. I do believe that we are raising our frequency and that is what some people call ascension. And I believe that in 2012 was a pivotal time for us going through that energy upgrade in a way. And I was interpreting things at the time that were meant more figuratively or metaphoric, like in metaphors. I was interpreting that more literal. Like, one day maybe we are here, and then the next day maybe we ascend into a higher level of consciousness, so we don't have to be in the old 3D reality anymore. So because of that, I shared that with a lot of people. When I shared that with a lot of people, it made me look much less credible. It also was something that I realized I became so attached to a certain perspective of how I thought things were going to go, that I ended up, in a way, really developing this resistance around people that didn't believe in the spiritual awakening process, and it caused a lot of distance between me and other people. And at first I was trying to sell everyone on spiritual awakening. I was like, you don't understand, you're a spiritual being, you've forgotten this, all of this stuff, because I had such great experience from it that I thought to myself, well, everyone else would have such a great experience with it too. Like, I have other family members that may feel negative emotion. Well, if you do this, if you feel so much better and you're able to process it and all of this really cool stuff. However, what I ended up learning was that the more I tried to sell it to people, the more I was like dependent on what they thought, the more resistance they could feel, and then the more they would repel and they would not want to learn more about the spiritual awakening stuff. So it was almost that my insistence was causing a level of resistance. Insistence equals resistance. So what I learned to do is to no longer try to sell it to anybody. So after that 2012, what I did is for years, I just focused on, I was working a job that I wasn't that passionate about, but I knew I eventually wanted to be on YouTube. But what I did was, I just decided I was going to stay in my lane. I'm going to focus on what I'm doing. And by focusing on what I do, eventually that'll lead to something. And it's funny now because I could care less what people think, but now of course I have all the validation from so many different people, also because of the YouTube channel and everything. But even family members and friends that used to think what I talk about was weird, there's a lot of people coming around. It is pretty cool, and I don't have to sell it at all. So the first mistake I made is I tried to get everyone on board. And when you try to get everyone on board, especially with the way that you do it, if you just come out the gate and you're like, listen, we're all starseeds, multi-dimensional beings, like all of this stuff, they may just completely shut down. But if you start kind of small, you let's plant little seeds here and there. Like, you show certain correlations between different philosophies and how your thoughts create your reality, or at least your thoughts influence reality. With planting little seeds like that, it begins to open people up more and more. So that first mistake I made is I tried selling it to everybody. And because of that, I felt resistance when people didn't agree with it. And another thing that happened too was, it's almost like I started to develop a spiritual ego, because I became kind of pretty lonely for a while. There was a time when I wasn't hanging out with that many friends. I wasn't really doing much because I felt like people didn't get me. And I developed a spiritual ego where I was like, well, these people, they just don't get it. They're just still asleep. They don't want to know the truth. And that belief that there were people that were like that was causing me to not feel connected to other people. Because then I had a belief that people weren't awake. But instead what I did is I learned to not judge, to just let people be. Everyone's at their own level of consciousness, not higher, not lower. There's just levels to this, okay? But they're not up and down levels, just like, I don't know, like side to side levels where we don't feel better than anyone else. So that was the first one. Now the second one's kind of funny, okay? When I got to the spiritual awakening stuff, I went all in, okay? I'm talking, I went from someone that would never meditate. I smoked a lot, I would drink a lot. All of a sudden, I'm meditating, and I wasn't just meditating, like I was doing mantras and stuff. Like I would be in my room, and I lived with my mom, her husband at the time, and then my brother and my sister on my mom's side. And we all lived in this like house that was kind of in the middle of nowhere here in Vegas. There's like this place called Sloan, Nevada. We lived right over there. It's like a couple miles south of Las Vegas. It was a really cool house. If I went back there, it would be real cool to bring back the memories. However, what happened is I'd be like in the backyard, I'd be doing mantras, I'd be, I went so far deep. I went from like eating crappy food to going like straight raw vegan like right away. I just did some pretty extreme, I look back at it now and I just went hardcore. I was like, this is what I believe in. So when I had friends and family that didn't understand what I was like, didn't understand why there was such a huge change in me, it makes sense to why they thought that. I went from 0 to 100 real quick. Okay. Now, what happened though is I became unbalanced. I became almost too metaphysical. Like, I was like, I don't want to work in 3D reality, have a 3D job, and listen to people I don't like to listen to. I became almost kind of like a 3D snob, or like a 5D snob. I don't even know what you call it. But I was like, no, I'm not gonna go into a job. I quit my job on a whim. It's like, this doesn't resonate anymore. I worked at Nordstrom's and women's shoes, and I just went in one day, and I wasn't really happy with the management there because there was a lot of politics going on. So I just went in one day, and I was like, you know what? I'm not coming in tomorrow. And I was there for 5 years. So some of the things I did is I just kind of had some pretty dramatic changes because I wasn't happy with the 3D world, and I went from where I was to just complete different state to where I was almost too airy. I remember one of the reasons I left Nordstrom's is because there were these like global meditations every Sunday at 11:11. And if I had to work on a Sunday, I would go on a break. Like if I was helping a customer with shoes, I'd have to find an excuse to go on a break. I'd have to finish up with them real quick, go on a break, so that I could go across the street at, of all places, a Trump Hotel. Okay, where I worked here in Vegas, that was right across the street. And there was like little grass. So I wanted to go like ground myself in grass and meditate. And there were like cars driving by. It was like, I was hardcore. I was like, we're gonna ascend the collective consciousness. This is what we're all doing. It doesn't matter. 3D jobs are of no importance. I'm gonna go meditate at the Trump Hotel inside of in the grass and allow my vibration to raise so that it can help the collective consciousness. So the moral of this story is that it's still about being grounded in 3D physical reality. I remember that I didn't want to get it, like after I quit my job, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this whole 3D reality. I'm just going to be in the 5D ascension mode, right? There was this lady that I talked to on the phone about kinesiology. She was like some type of kinesiology thing. She could ask questions and you get yes or no answers from her subconscious mind, which is very similar to the power versus force stuff that I talk about. But it was a certain branch of it that I wasn't that familiar with. But she was this really old, 70-something-year-old lady. She was really, really sweet. And I was on the phone talking to her, asking her questions, and she was dead on for a lot of things. There was this one thing where she's like, "What happened when you were 20 years old?" And I was and then she would go through these different yes or no questions, and she'd narrow down why it was there. There was this heart wall that I had around my heart. It was very interesting. But she was so dead on for everything. So then I asked her to ask one question. You're not really supposed to ask questions like this, but I was just curious. Does spirit want me to go get a 3D job? Or whatever. That was my question. And she goes, "Yeah, I'm getting yes." I was like, "No, can you do it again?" She does it again. She's like, "Yes." I was like, maybe that's something, maybe all that other stuff was right, but maybe that one thing was wrong. That was kind of my thought process on it. However, eventually what I did do is I realized, okay, I got to go back into the 3D world and get a 3D job for now. This is in 2013. And it was after 6 months of just deep integration. I was like, okay, I got to go back into the 3D world. So what I did is I applied at the first place that I found that I was okay, it's I worked in women's shoes at Nordstrom's. I'll go to a higher end place. I went to Barney's New York, which is a higher end, more boutique-y retail place, $1,200 pair of shoes, you know what I mean? And I went in there and I applied and literally got an interview the next day and got the job that day. So I was it just seemed meant to be, you know what I mean? But what I realized was that this isn't about having such a 5D experience that you're not meant to be having a 3D. You're meant to be having a mixture of 3D and 5D experience. But what I had to do is I had to go back to a job that I didn't really care about so that I could eventually get to the point where I'm okay, I want to leave here. I developed the skills and I developed the ability to then go full-time doing what I love. And maybe that created the pressure for me to make videos. I'm not sure. But I see that happen to a lot of people that are going through spiritual awakening. They're screw a job, this 3D world and stuff. No, it's about integrating this world and being here. Being 5D isn't about being some mystical unicorn that doesn't have to exist or eat or or anything like that. So it's still about enjoying. What I do is I enjoy life. I go out and I like to eat at a nice place every now and then. And enjoy the senses. Not get identified with them, but enjoy it. Many of us, we have connections to higher vibrational places beyond just this body. And we may not have food the same way we do here. Doesn't mean we get identified with the food. Doesn't mean we may not fast or we may not do things. But it just means that we can enjoy this experience. And I felt sometimes with spiritual awakening is there's such a seriousness that comes that the seriousness itself causes a level of resistance. Now, the third thing I want to mention is something called the event. Some people going through a spiritual awakening will talk about this event. There's QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique, and through people that tap into their higher mind, there's a lot of information that comes out about this event that's going to happen, this cosmic event where there's going to be this flash of light and all these different things, which sounds pretty cool. And they have been talking about this event, and I used to be someone that was really keeping up with it. Since 2012, they've been talking about it. It's going to happen any moment now. I'm not saying it's not, but what I am saying is that the key is not to wait. The key is not waiting. So many people are putting abundance on hold. So many people are waiting for something magical to happen, for disclosure to happen, for all of these things to happen, not knowing that you are disclosure, not knowing that you are the one that's going to help in this process. The way the mechanics of this reality are changing is that now, the more good you put out into the world, the more comes back to you. And most of us light workers, star seeds, whatever label we want to give it, we have the intention of helping people wake up. And because we have that intention, the energy is working in our favor. But it's not about waiting for some specific time. Some people are waiting for some funds to be released from all the people that have hoarded the money and it shouldn't be with them. What I've learned is you don't want to be in the waiting game. You want to just be. You want to do what you're passionate about. You don't want to keep waiting. I see so many people in waiting mode. And the key is, what is more powerful, waiting or tapping into your own power? You see? So, the mistakes I made on my spiritual awakening process is, one, I developed a spiritual ego, and I thought people didn't get me, and then I created more and more of that reality. Two, giving everything up, and just going so deep down to unicorn, so deep, so fast spiritual, instead of integrating that of the 3D reality and being here and there at the same time. And then, like I was mentioned, 3, not waiting anymore. Simply choosing that you are going to be the change that you wish to see. You are going to be abundant, knowing that the mechanics of this reality have changed to a point to where they can highly benefit you. So, those are the 3 things that I wish I knew earlier that would have made my life so much easier. Let me know if you resonate with any of these, or if you have any others that you wish you knew earlier. Let's go ahead and share it down below. Also, I have a Raise Your Vibration MP3 that you can download by clicking the link below. You can listen to that every day for 21 days. Read the comments on that video to see what is possible. And it'll help you to raise your vibrational set point, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So if you haven't already, turn on the notification bell. That's the only way you can see the daily vids. I got a lot more good stuff coming. Other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.